Welcome to this video with the purpose of helping educators explain MAP scores to parents or guardians during parent-teacher conferences. What will you need? You will need a student progress report for each individual student. This will be printed directly from the MAP reports section on the online NWA website. You'll need a quick reference guide that will help explain this individual student progress report. You will need the MAP conference informational sheet created from the Teaching and Learning Department that will help you as an educator explain the RIT score and what grade equivalency means, as well as what the Lexile reading range on the MAP report means as well. The quick reference guide and the MAP conference report have an asterisk by them. This means that they are both located on the Teaching and Learning website under the MAP tab and the Parent-Teacher Conference Materials section. How do I find the Student Progress Report? You log on to the MAP NWA website. Log in with your username and password. Click on View Reports, then MAP Reports, and select the Student Progress Report. You'll filter as needed, whether you choose to print by full school or by individual teacher, etc. And under the Report Options section, you'll find Group Output and click One Progress Report per student. You'll then create the PDF report. The report will generate. In the report's queue page, it will show that it has been submitted, and then when it's ready, it will pop up as downloaded. You'll click on Download, open the file, and print each individual student progress report. So now that I've given you overall directions, let's walk through this. Go to teach.mapnwa.org, which will take you to this secure site. You'll use your username and password, and you'll click Login. This is the page that pops up after you log in. From here, you'll see on the far left side, View Reports. When you click here on View Reports, this drop-down will show up, and you'll click on MAP Reports. From that will pop up this screen. You'll then select the Student Progress Report located here. From there, your screen may look differently. As an administrator, you may have all schools and you will select just your school, clicking on the button for just your school. If you're choosing to print them by each individual teacher, then you'll click here and drill into the specific teacher file. We'll pretend only one school, for example, Rock Island High School. I might click here, and when I scroll down here, I'll see some options down here. Let me walk you through what we'll do with that section here. In that section, you are only going to change the button One PDF per grade to select one PDF per student. Do not change anything else in this section. Please leave it all as it's clicked. Only change this group output section from one PDF per grade to one PDF per student. Once you have that area clicked, click Create PDF Report. From there, you'll see this screen. In your Reports Queue screen, you'll see the progress report, the time it was generated, when it's going to expire, which means you'll no longer have access to it after that day and time, and the status. You'll see this one was submitted, and shortly after that, depending on the size, will depend on how long it takes. It will change here to order status of download. Once you download, it will open up into an example such as this one. You'll notice I don't have a student name, an ID, or a school name here. That's on purpose. I've taken an actual live student's data and pulled off the identifiable information. But this is what the report will look like when it comes up as a download for you. We're going to go through this report in detail in just 1 minute, but as a reminder, for parent-teacher conferences, you're going to need that individual student progress report, you're going to need a quick reference guide, and the MAP conference informational sheets located on the Teaching and Learning website. Let's walk through these specific documents. Here is an example of the entire sheet. This is the student progress report that will pop up with individual student names, IDs, and the school name already populated for each student. The next sheet you'll need is this student progress report. This report has been re-edited by the Teaching and Learning staff, and we strongly recommend you use this specific report. Again, I've taken off any student name, ID, or school name, but this is an overall report to help you explain to parents what each section of their individual child's report explains to them. The next sheets that the Teaching and Learning Department have created are for educators only. This sheet and the following sheet are not to be printed and given to parents. This is for educators to read about and learn so they have the information needed to explain the report to parents. This is the second sheet. It's all around the Lexile reading range, and again, this is only for educators. It is not intended to be printed for parents. So now that you know all the things that you need, let's show you in more detail how you're going to use these documents to help explain the current performance level of students during parent-teacher conference time. I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint and pull up different files. So as I bring that down, the first file that I'm going to pull up is the student progress report. Again, this is a sample. You'll see here the student writ, the district grade level writ compared to the norm writ. You'll see where MAP has projected the student needs to go by spring of 2017. This is for reading, this is for math. In each section, it shows this information as well as specific information regarding that content area for their performance in that specific area. For math, in this example, it shows operations and algebraic thinking and that this child's at the high average. Measurement and data the same, number and operations high, geometry high average. It does the same down here with the reading performance areas. The thing it adds for reading is a Lexile range that I'll help explain in just 1 minute. From there, I'm going to bring up the student reference guide that you will use side by side when you explain this information to parents. So I'm going to put it side by side here so we can help go over this together. What you're going to help parents and students navigate this report is by using the information I have enclosed here in the red box. First, you will want to explain to parents and students what is a RIT score. This section helps you explain what is a RIT score. It displays the current and the past scores. For many of our students, they don't have past scores because this is the first time they've taken MAP. RIT stands for Roush Unit, which is a unit of measure that uses individual test question difficulty values to estimate student achievement. That may sound very educational language-like, and so that is why we've also provided this additional sheet here that I'll pull up. This again is that sheet that you'll use to review prior to and have by your side as you help explain it. So what is RIT? It officially stands for Rausch unit. A RIT score is used in a variety of assessments. It indicates the level of question difficulty a student's, I apologize, that should say a student is capable of answering correctly about 50% of the time. In the MAP test, the RIT range goes from approximately 140 to 235, depending on the reading or math area. I will get this corrected and re-upload so you have a document that does not have that error in it. Again, this is for you to use to help explain what RIT score means to parents. So if we go back here, we're only going to focus in this box for fall conferences. Parents will have this information that they will take with them, and so they can explore the information in this box, which goes along with these explanations below. But for fall parent-teacher conferences this year, we are only going to talk about this box and the explanations that go with that box. So as you sit with students and/or parents and guardians, you will take these sheets side by side and help navigate. Right here, we want to focus in the area of math. It shows your child's RIT score in this math area as 186. I go over here, 1 matches 1 over here. Shows it in this area. 1 is the student RIT. The explanation is down here. This is their current score on the fall assessment. Number 2 matches number 2 here. That's this section. If we refer to this child's report, number 2 is the district grade level mean RIT. This means how did students across the district who took this assessment score? Right here, you'll see this child was at 186 in their personal score, and the students across the district that took this same exam scored on average around 170. So you could let the parent know that this child is performing above other students as an average across the district. The third section is the norm grade level mean RIT. This correlates to this yellow bar, which would be any of these yellow bars. This means where student RIT was the individual student score, grade level mean across the district meant all kids in the district who took that same exam. The third section in the norm grade level means all students across the nation who took that grade level test scored on average at that range. In this report, we would say to the parents, your child scored 186. The average for the district in this grade who took this test was 170. Students across the nation who took this exam had an average score of 176. That means your child is performing higher than the average of the district and the average of the students across the nation that took this test. The next section is the student's RIT projection. That is over here. Correlates to this 4 number box down here. What that says is, what's the target? Your child started here. Where do we want to see them by the end of the year? That's this area. So if we go back to this student's report, we would explain to the student and parents, you started at 186. MAP has a way of creating a formula to say, well, based on that, kids who scored 186 in the fall typically achieved 203 in the spring. By the time students take this spring and the end of April and the beginning of May, this school year, we expect that your child will achieve a 203. The next area is area 5, the goals performance. Each goal area included in this test is listed right here. So for this report, number 5 correlates to number 5 up here, the specific areas in that content area. If we refer over here to math, it's these areas that we reviewed earlier, the operations and algebraic thinking, the measurement and data, number and operations, and geometry. Students would score in low, low average, high, or high average. You would explain to parents where their child is performing in that goal performance area for math. And lastly, you'll explain the Lexile range. So we just reviewed the math area. You would do the same in steps 1 through 5 for reading, but then you would focus down here in the Lexile range area. At this point might be the point where you want to explain further to parents about whether or not their child is performing at grade level expectations. At this point, you would be using these sheets that you would have side by side, one being the Lexile reading range and the other being the grade equivalency. Let's start with the Lexile reading range. Since this specific example shows that this student scored in the 51 to 201 L Lexile range, I could correlate that over here to a chart. What we want to be very, very mindful about is sharing and expressing that students are performing at a specific grade level. This chart is for your use as the educator. What you will say is 51 to 201 Lexile. That falls approximately in this range. If this student was in first grade, I would say to the parent, your child is reading within the expected reading range. I am not necessarily going to let them know that they are specifically at a certain level as a first grader. If this student was a second grader, and the expected Lexile ranges for second graders are here from 420L to 650L, I would let the parent know not that they're performing at a first grade level, but rather they are performing below where we expect them to be at this point in time. You might say, well, what if a parent asks what a Lexile level is? Here is the definition for you to help explain that. It is a measure of an individual's ability to read text at specific difficulty levels. This means a text is at the difficulty level of second grade between this Lexile range. The measures can stand alone and not be reliant on a group of students like grade equivalency is, such as in the MAP test, the normed referenced area over here on how everyone in the nation took it means the average of all of those kids who took it. Not the highest score and not the lowest score, but the average of all kids who took that specific test. With Lexile, it's not based on the average of students, it's based on that individual text difficulty level and that band of Lexile ranges. I encourage you to read further information down here so you have the ability to answer additional questions parents might have. Again, with Lexile ranges that we see right over here, we want to share with parents whether their child is above, below, or within the expected reading range based on this chart that you refer to when you're looking at this student's score over here. Important information to read is here. I want to draw your attention to this specific information. When we talk about a student reading at a certain Lexile range and whether they're above, below, or within that expected grade level range, we want to make sure we understand so we can better communicate to parents specific information. It's noted here, starting with this line here where my cursor is, that students who are interested in reading about a specific topic and or therefore motivated often are able to read text at a higher level than would be forecasted by the reader's Lexile measure. Although a student may be an excellent reader, it is incorrect to assume that he or she will comprehend text typically found at and intended for a higher grade level. A high Lexile measure for a student in one grade indicates that the student can read grade level appropriate material at a very high comprehension rate. If I'm in second grade, but I scored in the fifth grade band, that does not mean I, as a second grader, can read fifth grade text. We want to make sure that we reiterate and explain that it means that a high Lexile measure indicates the student can read grade level material at a very high comprehension rate. So again, if I'm a second grader scoring in the fifth grade band, that means I'm able to read second grade content with the comprehension of equivalent to a fifth grade level. Does not mean as a second grader I can conquer fifth grade reading material. Further information is located here at Lexile.com, but we strongly encourage you to read through this document. Again, this is the Lexile reading range that's associated with the reading section of the Student Progress Report, right down here in gray. Lastly, we want to make sure that we're explaining grade equivalency correctly. Just as I talked about with Lexile ranges, because a student scores in a certain grade range does not mean that that student can conquer material at that grade level. We already talked about what is RIT. Here is the information that will help you explain to students and parents what grade level equivalent means on this test or any other test that measures grade equivalency. Remember, these scores are based on an average of all kids that took them. Here in yellow is across the nation. Here in the orangish red is across the district. So on average, it was 170. This student performed on average 186. So if I look at 186 in the area of math, and I use the chart for grade equivalency located on page 62 of the Applying Reports document, I see that a score of 186 puts this student somewhere in the second grade between beginning and mid-year level. If this child is in fact in second grade, we'd say, hey, they're performing around where we want them to be. Because on average, the kids across the nation in second grade scored 176.9 at the start of the year and 186.4 in the middle of the year. This child is already performing at 186, so your child is doing well. Your child is on target to continue to meet grade level expectations. What we want to make sure we don't say is, for example, if this happens to be a kindergartner and they scored at 186, we don't want to tell parents that they are scoring at a second grade level and that they could conquer second grade material. It simply means that that child scored above the average kindergartner. Here's further information here. Grade equivalent scores do not mean the student is functioning at that specific grade level. The score does not mean that the child can complete that grade level work or move to that grade level. And these scores are rough estimates of their performance at this point in time. We want to be very cautious about this type of measure. Here's an example I've given. A student in seventh grade with a reading RIT score of 206 puts this student in the beginning of the year fifth grade reading status. However, this does not mean the student is completely functioning as a beginning of the year fifth grade student. It means the student scored and is performing at a level consistent with the average students who took this test at the start of the year as fifth graders. So the score of 206 puts that child over here. Somewhere in the, whoops, that was math, I apologize. 206 puts them somewhere here in fifth grade. But again, if they are a seventh grade student, it does not mean that they should be pulled back to fifth grade. It does not mean that they can't handle seventh grade material. It means that the score on this test put them where students in the beginning of the year fifth grade scored on average. Again, we want to be very careful about this. Bottom line, it is important to share with parents where their child is currently performing against the average of the district and whether they're performing above, within, or below expectations. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask your building principal. We are working as a team. We know that this is our first attempt with MAP this year, and we want to make sure that we do our best to help teachers, students, and guardians, as well as the parents, understand exactly what this report means for their individual child. Again, please ask your principal or your other administrator if you have further questions so we can help you assist in providing as much information and as clear of information as possible during parent-teacher conferences. Another recommendation we have for you is that if you are conducting student-led conferences, teach this to your students and have them teach it to their parents. That would be a wonderful way to help spread the message so that parents could ask their children about the report and not solely rely on needing to contact you as the teacher. We know you'll do your best. Please refer back to these documents for further information. Have an excellent time with parent-teacher conferences.